Welcome to another episode of Tech Story, the podcast which talks about all things tech with successful founders and business people working at tech companies. Today, I'm excited to welcome James Owusu on the show. James is the founder of Checkboard, an online orchestration onboarding platform aimed at the property sector and conveyances. James, thank you for taking the time to be with us today. Please, can you share a bit of background about yourself and Checkboard?
Thanks, Charles. Thanks for having me. Where do I start? I think maybe starting with my background is probably the best way to go about it. I originally started working in financial services, dealing with mortgages and investment. So I guess that's where the property focus originated from and how Checkboard evolved. I did a lot of work with consumers in helping them arrange mortgages, learn about the property transaction, doing the KYC, and then moving on to do the same in the investment space. So it became very clear that KYC is a pain. I don't think anyone likes doing it, actually, as a matter of fact. No one likes, providing their documents 1,000 times or, passport image, bank statement. It all feels a bit intrusive when you think about it. So I kind of set out to disrupt that and change it just to provide a better experience for everyone whilst reducing risk and mitigating fraud.
That's great. And in terms of your online verification and checks, is it if a consumer is looking to get a mortgage, is that the specific use case that you're solving? Who uses Checkboard today?
Yeah, in terms of the use cases that we actually solve, the platform is built in a way that you can take it apart and put it together however you see fit. Meaning you can orchestrate any journey that you would like to. Let's say you are onboarding new cash from investors. Maybe not the founder directly onboarding cash, but maybe a VC house or investment house would want to go through some form of, onboarding flow for the investors. You can use Checkboard for that. You can ensure that you capture the relevant data points that help your business and that are relevant to your business in doing so. So presently, our largest clients and our largest use cases are in the conveyancing market, where they use Checkboard to learn about their clients, to onboard them, and as well as find out if they've got mortgage information or uh, how much they've got available to either purchase property or how much of a mortgage they have when selling a house. And also the same is similarly conducted by estate agents as well. But as I just mentioned, we've also got some investment houses that use us to conduct those initial due diligence uh, checks on their customers. And going forward, we do have plans to branch out into other verticals, which have a need to learn specific and contextual relevant information about their customers through the onboarding journey.
That's great. And so, what contextual information can a client of yours obtain through
Yeah,
Checkboard?
interesting. Very, very interesting question here. So you've got things like if you think about a home buying journey, right? Yes, you might need to know who the person is, the passport. You might need to know where they live. That's standard stuff, and you can get that information pretty much everywhere. That market is, there is not much innovation happening there. Where we step in is we take that information and we use it to obtain other bits. Like, for example, we know where you live or we know the house you're selling. We would then use that information to figure out from your credit file what the balance of your mortgage is, as an example, on that property. Or, someone might be interested in understanding the leverage, the amount of leverage you have, the amount of CCJs you have. So if they are acting on behalf of a lender or, selling the property, they know not to miss out the people who have got a right to the sale proceeds about that property. So as you can imagine, we're getting very granular now. Equally, if you're onboarding cash from an investor, for example, you might be interested in understanding where the largest source of that cash is coming from. We can draw that information out because that is something super important to you. You can actually select, I would like to know this information from the entire onboarding journey. So that's how it's very relevant and how it's contextual. And as we kind of branch out into other spaces, we always want to make sure when we are helping people obtain that information is absolutely relevant to the organization. We're not just giving you here's the standard, data dump, figure out what you want to do with it. We help you actually go, I don't want all this other information. I don't want all this GDPR obligations. I just want to know this, that, and that. Tell me it, please, as part of the onboarding journey. That's what we do.
Really interesting. And since starting Checkboard three years ago,
Yeah.
what's been your favorite moment so far?
Oh, favorite moment. I think when you start building a product, you face a lot of challenges. I think all of us are, familiar with that. Uh, and sometimes we all come across problems which, with all the will in the world, you can't solve today. And we had this very niggly little problem that was causing a customer experience pain point. It was very slow. And as you know, when you're engineering a product and you're putting things together, you build up technical debt. So there was one bit of technical debt which existed in our platform for a long time, and we just didn't know what it was. And I remember the day we solved that issue. I was like, thank God, because like it was something that we were building on top and adding new things. We knew it was there, but we didn't want to allocate the time just yet to resolve it. And every single time something comes up, like, we'll look at it later. And then one day we just kind of spent a good day at just resolving it, and that was it. It felt really good to have eliminated that pain, slowing things down and making the experience not optimal. And since then it was absolutely fantastic going forward. So that was good.
I can definitely relate. I mean, product's really difficult, really hard,
Yeah,
and even when you follow all the rules and everything that's preached in all the books,
yeah,
you still end up with something which isn't what you expected.
yeah,
And technical debt is something that sometimes you just need to do, but also I guess I understand from the founder's perspective, whenever technical debt comes up, it's always, well, if we work on this, it means that we're not working on everything else that we're
yeah,
supposed to. And I guess it's always a balance. Sometimes you need to do it, sometimes you shouldn't.
yeah,
But yeah, never product is not easy.
yeah. It's interesting when you say, getting a balance in that, because the truth is you've got so many different priorities that you're trying to manage. You've got, a client requesting this feature or that feature, and at the same time you're aware of 1,000 different problems which you're aware you need to address, but you haven't got enough time, enough be enough resources to actually tackle it. So you just go, okay, look, let's put this fire aside for now. We'll come back to it. Let's deal with these problems. Let's help the client generate more revenue. We'll come back to these problems, and you're constantly playing with that balance. But I think all of us know that there are some really, really massive issues in our businesses that are not necessarily, massive problems that will tank the company, but there are issues that are holding back some experience, or holding back, taking a business to the next level. And occasionally you have to go, stop all of this. Let's actually deal with this before we can get to the next level. So it really felt good to identify and resolve that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I guess aside from products, what do you wish you'd known before starting Checkboard?
Oh, Jesus. I wish I'd known that all the projections you make, yeah, with all the will in the world, you would be off your projection, and that's fine. I think, there's absolutely nothing wrong with being off your projection because you have to start somewhere. It's kind of like a dissertation, right? You know, you start, having a thesis of what you're going to be researching or what you're going to be, investigating, and you probably end up with something completely different to what you had in mind you're going to achieve. I'm going to be researching that and completely go off, off the path. So yes, that's one of the biggest things that you put your forecast together, you put your financial model together, you kind of say in 12 months I think we're going to be here based on all the market research I've done, based on all the data points I've looked at, and then you actually get down to the nitty gritty and you realize, yeah,
Well, I mean, I think everything takes longer than we expect.
yeah,
And I mean, product is a prime example, but I think sales as well.
yeah,
And even if you've got a customer who's super interested, super excited, and they say, oh, yeah, next week, and then next week comes and nothing's changed, and ultimately, it does drag on. And so I think, yeah, time is always going to slow things down, always going to mess up with your projections.
yeah,
And I think especially when you're creating something new in a brand new market, it's it's really difficult to project or forecast anyway because
yeah,
it's never been done before. You're creating demand for something which doesn't exist,
yeah,
and it will eventually the projections will catch up. That's the whole point,
yes,
exponential growth. But you just don't know when it's going to happen, and
yeah.
until then, I guess you need to come up with numbers for investors, right?
Exactly, and,
Yeah.
I think there's been no better way to put it than what you just said. I think one of the biggest challenges for us was we started a conversation with a client and we were like, okay, they said, yeah, it will take us about 3 weeks to implement this. 2 months later, we're still implementing this and we're still testing this. 3 months later, and then you quickly realize, yeah, uh, I was forecasting to be having all that revenue now, but yeah, we're out by a couple more months or several
Yeah.
months. And yeah, it's just the nature of the beast. You're right, exponential growth is what we all hope for, and that's how that J curve is formed
Yeah.
to make up for the fact that it's not a straight line.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, leaving everything to the last minute,
Yeah.
but great. And obviously, you've found this great use case with conveyances
Mm.
and property, and you're looking to branch out to other verticals. What's sort of the vision for the company for the next 3, 5 years?
I do see us branching out into other verticals, primarily the car, you know, used car market, and potentially, the new car sales. They have a need for, due diligence as well as understanding their clients as well. So that's an exciting space I'm quite looking forward to getting into. And equally approaching underserved markets. So although yes, great, in the UK the property industry and onboarding is very much near maturity. There are other markets out there which are 1,000 years behind, and you know we've got some of our teams in South Africa as an example, and in those markets you've got a massive need for a solution like ours. So over the next 3 to 5 years, we are going to be expanding the platform internationally and into the vehicle market. So yeah, I'm quite looking forward to that.
International expansion and domination.
Well, yeah, I think it's once you build something and the potential is clearly demonstrated, you don't want to hold it back. You want the whole world to benefit from this if possible. Um, so rather than it's definitely an international expansion and it's definitely exciting, but it comes with unique challenges,
Yeah.
different markets, different jurisdictions, different regulation, different requirements. I think it's not going to be I wish it would be a walk in the park, but definitely, I know it's definitely not going to be.
Yeah, well, I mean, best of luck, and I think yeah, international expansion is uh, really fun and interesting, but also really risky and dangerous. So
Yeah,
I'm sure you'll sort of work that out. But
yeah, yeah.
great. And as a busy founder and CEO, I imagine you must come across quite a few legal documents and contracts.
Hmm.
What are the key ones, and are there any areas of friction that you've encountered?
Yeah, so legal documents and contract, I think two of them really stand out to me. Um, Employment contracts, for example, are ones that you have to kind of get right and you have to kind of standardize in some way, shape, or form. But then you do have occasions where, you might be hiring someone from a different part of the country or, well, a different part of the world actually, and you need something different for them. And that original standard employment contract did not fit anymore. So a UK employment contract not going to work for somebody in Macedonia or South Africa. So you need to do something different there. And I, for one, you know, had previously used a consultancy agreement for international hires and an employment agreement for UK hires, but that does not provide them with the level of protection that they might benefit from. So I guess it's an imperfect solution to the problem. So employment contract one of the tricky ones when you have teams in different parts of the world, which is I think something that most companies have today because of COVID. And another one is consultancy agreements. Just how you get that right. Some people want to get paid a fixed amount. Some of them want to have a fixed monthly payment, and they all come in different shapes and sizes. And again, that's probably the um, the most varied contract that I've kind of dealt with. Consultancy agreements just don't come in any standard shapes. You're not going to meet any two consultants. You're not going to meet any two professional service providers, and you do have to always adapt it differently to suit their needs. So, um, if I had to articulate a very challenging one, is definitely that.
And with those, let's say with the consultancy agreements where every consultant has their own rates, might be weekly, monthly,
Yeah,
daily. How do you sort of keep track of all of that?
I don't. That's the actual answer. I don't keep track of it. I think
I guess your finance team must hate you.
yeah, they really do have that because I think naturally what happens is you don't think about it until you have to, or until someone goes to you, oh, what's the state of that? And you're like, give me a minute, let me check it out for you. And then you have to go open up. That's what I do now. I'll probably, I'll get asked a question from an investor or, an advisor interested in understanding what the expenses are, as an example. And then because I'm not sitting there creating a separate spreadsheet and going, oh yeah, this is that and that is this, I just go, yeah, sure, hold on a second, and I sign in, get the contract up, go to the terms, and then put out a number. Um, I guess it does get tedious when you have five or six that you have to kind of put together. That task is no longer a quick. Oh yeah, give me 5 minutes. That's maybe about half an hour because you have to write it all down as well. Though. So yeah.
Yeah, well, sounds like you should be using Legislate.
Well, yeah, I think from a conversation we've had, that does seem like a way to resolve that. Is it reconciling information and putting it
Well, I
together?
mean, I think reconciling is one, but you mentioned even with five consultancy
Mm,
agreements, five consultants might have different rates,
mm,
whether it's daily, weekly, they might have different notice periods. They might have, some might be providing deliverables, others might just be providing a continuous service. And it can be really tricky to track unless you are creating and maintaining a spreadsheet. And so ultimately Legislate just makes it easy to find those contracts. And even if, for example, let's say you weren't sure which consultant had which rate, in a classic scenario, you would have to go through every single PDF.
Yeah.
Whereas with Legislate, you could just say, well, okay, show me the consultancy agreements that have this rate, and then you'd find the consultants that meet that criteria. So that way you don't waste time, and it always is a 2 or a 5 minute question, not a 30-minute, 1 hour question, which I know as a founder, obviously we've got unlimited hours in the day, but yeah, 1 hour is really valuable. And
Yeah.
so no, that's great insight. Thank you for sharing. And if you were to receive a contract to sign via Legislate or not, what would impress you?
Oh, okay, that's an interesting one. I think having a summary of the a summary of the contract, because let's face it, I typically look at contracts and I go, there are three parts I look at when I look at a contract. How much am I paying? How do I cancel it? And what am I getting? But then through those, well, to read those or to obtain those 3 points, you have to read a lot of text.
Yeah.
And I think, having a bit of a summary of the key, the key highlights would definitely make reading contracts for me a lot quicker.
Yeah.
And then, signing them a lot quicker as well, just because that does not mean I'm not gonna not look at the boring text, but I might look at the boring text, after grabbing what's really relevant. I can then focus on, okay, let me quickly skim through this and pick out what else I need to know.
Yeah, no, that's useful insight. And I mean, we provide a summary as well. But no, I think summarizing the key terms is always important, because you're right. It just makes it easier to read the actual contract when you do read it. And we've been asking our guests as well, especially founders, do you have any hobbies, and how have they sort of impacted your journey building Checkboard?
Yeah, I cycle when I'm really pissed off. So I'll probably do like a 2 hour cycle or 3 hour cycle on those very, very stressful parts of the journey, which I'm sure we've all gone through. I would be like, you know what? I can't do anything right now. I'm just gonna go for a long ride. So I think on one occasion I rode past the M25, just to blow off some steam, and then you regret cycling back because oh damn, my legs are aching. At least it gives you something else to think about rather than the problem, which occasionally helps to distract yourself. So yes, I do cycle as a way to help me not necessarily
Switch off.
Yeah, see, it's a funny one because I wouldn't say I switch off when I'm cycling. I just use all that rage that I'm feeling about the problem and power into my leg to go faster and just keep going until my legs actually go calm down and I'm in pain here, so let's stop, and then I'll probably turn back home. But yes, it does help. It does help for refocus you, because occasionally if you're staring at the pump for too long, or if you are looking at the same thing for so long, you do you realize you're not making any progress, and you might need to do something completely different to kick your mind into gear again. And to me, that's what you cycle for.
Yeah, I can. That's a good tip. I don't cycle. I mean, I've started to cycle, but with the Lime bikes across
Yeah.
London.
Yeah.
Just because I do find it's the quickest way to get from A to B.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a cool hobby and cool way to sort of vent.
I cycle longer with the Thames.
Oh, great.
So that's just like it cuts across all the way from Canary Wharf all the way out of London. If you want to, give that a go, you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, the thing is, I've got so used to Lime bikes that I once went back on a normal bike. I was like, oh, I've actually got a pedal. So,
Yeah. Good.
great. And is there a question that I haven't asked that you'd like me to ask, or?
No, I think we've kind of covered a lot. We've covered a lot of ground there. I mean, I would have said was probably the biggest challenge that that's all been faced. But I think that changes based on the season, right?
Yeah,
At any given point in time, you've got a really big challenge, either fundraising, either
hiring.
hiring, firing, whichever one it is. And I think there isn't ever a this huge problem because you might solve one today and then
Another one comes up.
exactly.
But also the problems change, because the problems that you have
Yeah,
today will be a lot smaller than the problems you have
yeah,
in a year.
yeah.
Hopefully.
Today's problems will be smaller in a year, but in a year, that problem will be very big,
Yeah.
relevant to the time it's in.
Yeah.
So sometimes I wonder whether the problem changes size or we get stronger
Yeah.
to deal with them.
That's a valid point. Hopefully stronger.
Yeah, that's what we all hope. Otherwise, we should be breaking down everything from we face.
Great. And what tips would you give to someone who's considering to be a founder?
Just start. Um,
And don't
you
stop.
either just start and don't stop. And if you're successful, great. If you fail, you should learn something. You've learned a way not to do it, and you can start again. Not that you ever want to fail, and not that failure is ever the goal, but it's always something you have to be aware could happen, and you just ignore it anyway and just keep going forward.
Very wise words.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much, James, for sharing your story on the tech story, and sharing your wisdom. Thank you for coming, and best of luck growing Checkboard.
Thanks for having me, Charles, and likewise, best of luck with everything got going on the Legislate.